Okay, so we're going to be talking about what I learned working as a developer for the 1 year mark we're at right now. So, in the last year, what have I learned? Not only technical skills, but what sort of on the job skills or insights have I learned working as a full stack developer, and what can I tell you so that you can know what to expect? Now, before we get going, and since we're going to be talking about learning new things, there's this great ebook bundle that's going to teach you a lot of new things that you may be interested in, such as a paleo diet, stretching. You know, I'm big on the essential oils, mindfulness, body weight training, vegan, posture, sex positions. This is a PG-13 stream, so we can't dive in too much onto that. Yoga. For those of you who don't know, I've done yoga for quite some time. I haven't in the last year, but I was doing yoga pretty much twice a week for about a year, and I really regret not doing it. Continue. But yeah, I just wanted to share that before we jumped into our video today. So as I mentioned, I've been working for the last year as a full stack developer, and to give you a little background on the company before we get started, what I've been doing is I worked for a military contract company, and essentially what that means is they, as the service company, help to run military training exercises. And what I did was I basically helped build web applications that went along with that. And the point was to either sell them or gain more contracts in the process, having this proprietary web applications that we built. So that's basically what I've been working on for the last year. So from a technical standpoint, I learned quite a bit. I went in there knowing, one of the things people ask quite often is, well, what'd you know when you got your first job? I went in there knowing HTML, CSS, JavaScript, a little bit of Angular, and jQuery. And that was really it. I mean, I'd been exposed to other things through coursework, MySQL being one of them, and databases. But in terms of what I actually would say that I quote-unquote knew, the reason I use quotes there, because I really don't think I know anything, because what I've learned is that there's so much to know about everything, and everything's changing so fast that I don't know anything. I just know a little bit less or a little bit more than some other people, right? So that's how I look at it, but I still don't know much. But yeah, so that's basically where I was at when I started the role, and a year later, I'm a much better developer with a much larger tool set than I had before. Now, when I started, I was fumbling around for about a month or two, and every weekend I was going and studying, and not only in the stuff that was there, but that was my first initial thing, is I wanted to make sure that I could do my job, right? This was the first development job I ever had, like first real one besides internships and contract work, and I wanted to make sure that I kept this job. And so I would study, and I remember very clearly, I think it was the second week, where I was leaving on a Friday, and my boss said, "Hey, Dylan, make sure you study this weekend." And that was the only thing that I needed to hear to say, you are not doing as well as I would like you to do, get it together. And I did. I think, at least I think I did. Throughout the year, I got much better at JavaScript. I got much better at AngularJS. At that time, I had built one project in AngularJS. This was when Angular was in version 1.3. And I had built my very first a YouTube website, codingtutorials360.com. If you're interested in it, you can go and check it out. It's still there. None of the code has been touched for the most part. And you can kind of see what I had built at that time to get to where I wanted to go. So throughout the years, I got better at Angular, I got better at JavaScript, HTML, CSS. I got better at jQuery, because these are all the main front-end things that we're using. But I also picked up a few brand new things, PHP and MySQL being some of them. I say MySQL because I've had coursework in MySQL, but I haven't really created databases. I haven't really connected tables and all the stuff that goes along with it. And to this day, I'm not the best person at MySQL, but I can go and I can look up some documentation real quick, refresh my memory, and I can start architecting a project out based off of how you would join tables and things like that. So I got better with databases in terms of relational databases. And PHP, the only PHP experience I had was a Codecademy tutorial, so basically none. And so I picked up PHP and Cake PHP, which is a framework. And then I got introduced to testing. Now, I had always been aware of what testing was, but I never really knew to what detail it was. And to be honest, I didn't really know that there's multiple types of testing, and I just thought it was all sort of under an umbrella of one testing, but that's not true. So the testing that I got most familiar with is called unit testing, and we use Jasmine and Karma, which is a front end, I guess it's library, to run tests. And basically what you're doing is you're testing your function. So if you have an add function, you're testing to see that if I pass in two parameters and we add them together, it's going to return the correct value. And if it doesn't, your code broke somewhere along the way. So you're testing your code. There's also end-to-end testing, and what that basically is, and I had very limited experience with this. My coworker did much more end-to-end testing than I did, and it was essentially you are setting up a program to run through your application in the browser as if a user was doing it, so that it's making sure that everything clicks, and that when this clicks, this event happens. If that event doesn't happen, something broke. And that could be something where you're typing in a key, it doesn't let you type in, or you're sending to authenticate your login, it doesn't go. And so it's that one's a little bit more visual. So a lot of code you gotta write for that one. I'm not a big fan of end-to-end testing, but unit testing is pretty straightforward and pretty fast in my experience. So I picked that up. I got much better with wireframing as well. Originally, my boss had us working with a program that's not supported anymore called Pencil Project, because it wasn't a huge deal. We had very low resolution wireframes, and the big point of it was to communicate to our bosses, our clients, if you will, what we're building and sort of what it's going to look like. It's not going to be ideal. This is a low resolution. It's not like web design where maybe you'll have someone actually get it down to the T, down to the pixel, what it's going to look like in Photoshop. This is to essentially illustrate a concept, and I'm actually going to have a video about wireframing, going more into that, as well as the tool that I ended up using, which is called Balsamiq, which I used at my previous job where I was doing technical writing and making training materials and things like that. I'm going to have a video going through that and walking people through Balsamiq and how to create good wireframes. So we would do that as well. And it was I got exposed to a lot in a year. In terms of the technical aspects, some things that I pretty much picked up from scratch was PHP, Cake PHP, MySQL, Karma, Jasmine. I also got exposed to build tools, which I wasn't using, which would be Bower. I wasn't really using NPM too much, so Node, NPM, Gulp, Grunt, and then I got exposed to some tools that we use, which was Tortoise Git, to help manage our Git repositories. It made me very dependent on it. I'm trying to break these habits now so that I can just learn Git for what it is, and it's hard. It's so funny being so bad at Git. I don't understand why I can't seem to get it. All right, get it? Who got it? Anyhow, so I learned a lot in technical skills. Now, the more so than the technical skills is what I learned outside of work, and what I also learned being at a company working as a developer. These are maybe the things that you would not see as much of. So in terms of talking about that, of being a developer and on-site, I was on a team of 4, basically. And when you're on such a small team, and one team of 4, there's not like 10 teams of 4. So there's a single team of 4, and basically we had a senior developer who's kind of the architect, if you will, but we were given a lot of leeway in how we were going to design our applications. And typically, the biggest change between working as a solo developer learning and going on a team is you're part of a team, right? Sometimes you're going to be working on different aspects of the same application, and you're going to need to be able to explain your code to the other developers and be like, hey, what is this and why is it here? And sometimes they will have very good responses. And I'm on both sides of this, by the way. And sometimes they will not, and you will have caught something that needs to be refactored or improved. But you need to be able to have good communication. And the biggest thing for me was what it was like to work with other developers, what it was like to be part of a team and contribute. And the only real time I ever experienced that was doing some pair programming with Engineer Truth when he was studying for the boot camp at Dev Mountain. and we would whiteboard out some algorithms, and we'd be solving free code camp algorithms, and then hackathons. Whenever I had a chance to go to hackathons, and a little bit in college, not really though, not too much. So it was a good experience in that factor. Another thing that I got more experienced in, and I say more experience because as my previous job, I had a similar task in my technical writer role where I would go and pull requirements from people. I would go to, at that company, I would go to different sub-companies, if you will, almost different departments, and sometimes I would need to get their feedback and their feature requests. I would need to create tickets and report back, hey, this is what's really important to them. They can kind of wait on this, and I would do that on a much grander scale now as a developer, of which I would be maybe meeting with the higher ups, the big bosses, if you will, and say, hey, so this is your application. Let's work through it step by step. And I want to either show some of the, like, well, we can't do this because this is in direct conflict with this. And then, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Or, no, we really need this. Okay, well, this is going to have to go away. And then also on a small team, you really have a lot more decision-making power than perhaps on a larger team where there is a senior architect, there is a team lead, then there's several senior developers, and then there's you, the grunt, right? the junior developer, the young blood, if you will, although I'm not that young, right? So the newer developers that are there that are supposed to, not that you can't contribute your thought process, but you don't have the leeway when you have a project manager and a business analyst, and then you have a team lead and everybody else. It's not up for you to decide what is being built. It's your job to sort of build it and provide input back, which may or may not be implemented. In my last year, I basically had a lot of leeway to choose what tools I wanted to use, what open source libraries, how it was going to be built, how it was going to be architected, and at the end of the day, I would just sort of like take a piece of paper with some notes and be like, does this work? Yeah. Change this one thing. So that was a different experience. And that was partially because of us essentially being a startup within a company and more focused on rapid development than anything else. So in terms of what I spent my time learning outside of work, I spent a lot of time reviewing the JavaScript documentation, which I hadn't had a chance to do. And so I tried to replace bad habits of mine, such as always writing a for loop instead of maybe using a for each as a basic example, but being more comfortable with the functions that are already in, or the methods rather, that are already in the library or language rather, and making sure that I knew what tools I had at my disposal. This is something I'm doing right now with ES6. I'm trying to make sure that I'm more familiar with the documentation, and I'm continuing to be so. This is going to be a lifelong process of learning in this field, but I'm making sure that, okay, well, I wasn't able to write in ES6, so I only did it in my side projects. Now that I can at my current work, let's review this to the fullest and make sure that when I see something, I know what it is, and if I don't know what it is, I can ask, or I can Google it and do better, right? I want to get better, but you also want to be as prepared as you can for your current role. So in the last year, outside of work, what I've been getting better at was I picked up Node. I picked up Express. I picked up MongoDB, Mongoose. I also built, and how did I do that? I did some video tutorials. I did some interactive tutorials on Free Code Camp, and then I built about 5 projects in 4 or 5 microservice projects that I have videos on my channel. How to build a URL shortener, a date timestamp microservice, a to-do list. Same thing with React. In the last year, I also started messing around with React and Redux. And in React, I built four sort of small projects to really hammer it in, also from the Free Code Camp curriculum for inspiration. And not that I'm necessarily going to put that on my resume or my portfolio. More so, those are just mini projects that I like to hammer in after I've done some video tutorials to make sure that I actually understand and I can build something from scratch. Yeah, I watched this video and I typed the code as it was on the screen, right? But can I, when I open up that blank text editor, continue to grind and continue to learn and take what I learned and without someone showing me the steps, build out what I want and what I need to accomplish, my objective, my user stories. So this year has been a wonderful year of which I've learned and grown as a developer more so than last year. And part of that is I've been working for a year as a developer and doing full stack development, architecting out my own projects, working alongside other developers, and picking up other frameworks in my outside of work. And I also have been doing things like solving algorithms, looking at documentation, watching videos, running my Facebook group and YouTube channel, and staying up to date and reading up on these things, and continuing that passion that I always talk about as a developer. And I've been loving it. And it was a worry of mine, right? So sometimes you don't know if, even though you love something and you're doing something, the example I give quite frequently is music, because a lot of people can relate to that more than coding. So, or video games for that matter. So say you are a musician and you enjoy it, you love it, you come home every day after school, after work, you play your guitar, your drums, whatever it is. Now, imagine that actually becomes your job. It sounds good in theory, but what you may not like about it is now you are essentially forced into a role where you need to do this in order for you to earn $1. And it may actually take all the fun out of it for me. The example I gave was I used to play a lot of video games, and then I started streaming video games, and I hated it, and it kind of killed video games for a while for me, and I stopped streaming. But I was worried to a degree that could be something where I was studying so hard and I put being a developer on such a pedestal that perhaps when it did happen, when I really dived in, I wouldn't enjoy it anymore and it would just be a job. And unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way. I'm still very happy. So that's what I learned in the last year as a developer, and it's kind of crazy to sum it up in 15 minutes, right? The last entire year. But I've learned some technical skills. I've learned some more soft skills and more practical skills of how I interact with developers. And this next year, I'm going to be learning quite a few new skills to go along with that, and grow and continue to hopefully thrive as a eager, passionate developer. I guess that's what I consider myself: eager, passionate developer with a little less hair than he had last week. So thank you guys so much for watching the video. I appreciate it. And if you're interested in picking up some what is this, crystal healing, 365 inspirational quotes, yoga, body and mind, and then essential oils. You know, we're on the essential oil hype. Go ahead and check out the link in the description below. I appreciate you all. Don't forget to join our Facebook group, Code Tech and Caffeine. Check out our Discord channel, and of course, join the Patreon if you want to support me that way. Like, subscribe, share. I appreciate you all. I hope that wherever you're at in your developer journey, that you are continuing to study, continuing to grind. And if there's one thing you can take away from me in this last year, is you notice that not only did I tell you what I learned at work, but also outside of work, and continue to try and grow my skill set that way. And I hope you're doing the same. So thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye. Quick shout out to deviceplus.com. If you're interested in the latest IoTs, hacks, do-it-yourself projects revolving around Arduino and Raspberry Pi, they have some great how-to guides. I highly encourage you to check them out, and thanks for watching.